My husband returned from a 3-year campaign with an orphan girl by his side. He ordered me to prepare a guest room for her, only to find me feeding medicine to a handsome young man. The young man, delicate as a white flower, nestled beside me. Seeing my fierce-looking husband, his clear eyes filled with unease. "My lady, have I made the general angry?" When my husband, General Damon, returned victorious from war, the capital's streets were packed with citizens eager to glimpse the hero. He held his chin high, accepting the adoration of the masses, with an orphan girl by his side. The girl was pretty and slender, with a pitiful look that would stir anyone's sympathy. The servants in my household exchanged glances, none daring to break the silence. "Where's the princess? Have her prepare a guest room. This young lady must not be neglected." The orphan girl looked frail and deeply wronged. "General, am I causing you trouble? If you hadn't saved me, I would have perished long ago. No reward could ever be enough to repay you." Damon's words were noble, but the affection in his eyes was plain for even a fool to see. When the crowd of servants rushed to find me, I was in the middle of feeding medicine to Liam. The young man lay in the soft bedding, incredibly weak, barely able to open his eyes to speak to me. His face was as beautiful as the moon and clouds in the sky, enough to make one lose focus. "Are you feeling better today?" I asked him softly. "Much better. You don't have to, cough cough. Feed me yourself. Don't catch my illness." He barely finished speaking before biting his lip in pain. A trace of red stained his pale lips, and he couldn't help but close his eyes. With his long, thick lashes and elegant nose, he looked like a fragile glass sculpture. With a loud crash, the partially closed door was kicked open. Damon stood in the doorway, his face ashen, staring at me. "You!" He pointed a trembling finger at me. "Who is this?" The orphan girl beside him looked at us in shock, a hint of schadenfreude she couldn't hide in her eyes. She seemed to be waiting to see me panic. I didn't even glance at them. I tucked the blankets in for Liam and said, "Finish the rest of the medicine." Liam obediently drank the medicine, his eyes filled with distress and anxiety. He tried to get up, coughing as he spoke. "Don't tarnish, cough. My lady's reputation. I will explain everything to the general." Though extremely weak, he still tried to get out of bed to explain things to the murderous-looking Damon. I pushed him back down and turned to face Damon, a hint of anger in my eyes. "Can't you see a patient needs to rest? What is all this noise?" My voice was cold, carrying an authority that could not be defied. The orphan girl jumped, glancing nervously at Damon. Damon's expression was ugly, but in the end, he didn't dare say anything. A joke, what could he dare to say? "I am the current emperor's most beloved sister. Together, my brother and I survived a precarious childhood and a deadly battle for the throne. It was I who devised strategies for him. I who nearly lost an arm shielding him from a blade. A single word from me is worth more than 100 memorials." What could Damon possibly say to me? I set the medicine bowl aside and looked at Damon. He was furious, but didn't dare raise his voice again. He only asked in a trembling voice, "Who is this man?" I answered deliberately. "A month ago, I was out hunting and got separated from my guards. A lone wolf was stalking me. It was this gentleman Liam, who saved me at great risk to his own life. He was severely injured and still hasn't recovered. Out of gratitude, I brought him here to be cared for. Is there a problem with that?" I glanced at the orphan girl beside Damon and asked, "And who is this young lady?" Damon's face flushed red and white. He said stiffly, "I was injured, and Miss Lily saved me. If it weren't for her, I would have died in the mountains. She is a pitiful orphan. I brought her back to take care of her." I nodded, my expression unreadable. "Very well, they are both honored guests. You may arrange things as you see fit." I was giving Damon face, but he didn't want it. He pointed at Liam. "Both honored guests. How can he be compared to Miss Lily?" I raised an eyebrow and, in front of all the servants, slapped him down hard with my words. "They both saved our lives. Why can they not be compared?" "Ah, yes. The difference is in who was saved. Does your status and bloodline even compare to mine? In an instant, everyone's expression changed. Damon quickly said, "No, that is not what I meant at all." My personal maid, Clara, let out a barely concealed laugh. She walked to my side and took the medicine bowl from the table. "My lady, of course the general would never dare to mean such a thing. Even if you were to agree, His Majesty would not." Her status was above that of an ordinary maid. She had never even served Damon. Yet here she was, so naturally handling Liam's medicine bowl, making it clear that Liam held an extraordinary position in this household. Damon's face grew even darker as he glared at the man on the sick bed. After a long moment, Damon calmed down. "What I meant was, I went to war for our country, shedding blood for our people. Miss Lily saved me, so she has rendered a service to the nation. Naturally, she should have the best accommodations." I lifted my chin. "My younger brother went to war with you. Why is his body covered in old wounds, while you have only new ones? I've heard that some people, relying on their noble status, refuse to go into battle. That wouldn't be you, would it?" Damon's face turned uglier, and he stared at me fixedly. After a moment, he burst out in frustration. "I am a strategist." I waved my hand in annoyance. "My younger brother is devoted to the country and unwilling to take credit. Because my imperial brother is suspicious by nature. He doesn't want to stand out and prefers to be an overlooked prince. That is why he pushed Damon forward to be the general. Everyone knows it is the prince who calls the shots in the army." "Damon is a general in name only," I said. "You know perfectly well how you got that injury. Clara, tell the kitchen to prepare a grand feast tonight to welcome the general, and this young lady. Prepare the guest room in the west wing for her." Damon suddenly spoke. "Are you doing this on purpose?" I looked at him. You heard that I brought this girl back, so you deliberately found someone to provoke me." A trace of his youthful arrogance and pride returned to his face, as if he had won a round against me. "Our marriage was arranged at birth. Since childhood, he has been an arrogant person who seemed to despise this predetermined engagement. Yet he had to obey his parents' wishes. He climbed the ranks of nobility and power, reaching his current position, all on the back of his marriage to me. After we were married, he never touched me. In the second month of our marriage, he volunteered to go to the battlefield. 3 years later, he returns with a woman, as if to put me in my place. But from childhood to now, I have never cared. I don't care about many things. Having witnessed too much bloodshed and human darkness, my heart has long been numb. He thought I was taken by his handsome youth and had forced him into this. But in my eyes, he is no different from anyone else. His contorted face disgusts me. Whether he lives or dies, I've never cared. I didn't refuse the marriage because I knew he disliked me, and after we were married, we could live separate, undisturbed lives. It was simply for a bit of peace." Just then, Liam spoke. His clear eyes were full of anxiety as he struggled to sit up, his voice hoarse. "I will move out at once. Please don't make things difficult for my lady." Damon's face contorted with anger. "Then why don't you get lost right now?" Stung by his words, Liam lowered his head, his soft hair obscuring his eyes, his fingers curling in distress. "To be cared for by my lady is a blessing I never dared to imagine. I do not wish to see my lady and the general quarrel because of me." His voice grew quieter, and by the last few words there was a faint, almost imperceptible tremor. "I grew up in the palace and have seen countless consorts vying for favor. I have heard this kind of feigned reluctance more times than I can count, and it has long since bored me." But coming from Liam's lips, I only felt a pang in my heart, an overwhelming sense of pity. The blurry face of the young boy from my memory suddenly became clear, and my numb heart began to feel again. I pushed him back down and stared at Damon, my face expressionless. "This residence was built for me by my imperial brother. I am the only one who can kick people out. No one has the right to kick out my honored guest." Damon was furious, but he couldn't argue. I had refused to move into his family's home, and no one could force me. So Damon had moved in here, assuming the role of the master of the house. now that I had called him out. He was embarrassed. His face flushed red, feeling he had lost face in front of the orphan girl. You and I are husband and wife. I am also a master of this house. Whoever I want to leave, must leave, he shouted. Before I could speak, Clara covered her mouth and laughed, her eyes filled with contempt. Didn't the general say that you don't consider this house your home, and that one day you would move out and establish your own household? Why are you calling yourself the master today? Damon, the orphan girl, their faces were a sight to behold. Damon was so angry he nearly fainted. He pointed at Liam but couldn't utter a single word. Liam looked at Damon and said softly, "General, please don't be angry. Take care of your health." Damon cursed. "Stop your act." I picked up a porcelain cup and smashed it at Damon's feet. My aura was imposing as I said coldly, "Get out, you disgraceful thing." Damon stormed out of the room. The orphan girl, after a moment's hesitation, scurried after him, all her earlier composure gone. Liam leaned against me and said blankly, "My lady, have I made the general angry?" Not long after Damon and the orphan girl named Lily returned, it began to rain. Outside, there was only the sound of a steady drizzle. The small kitchen sent over some soup. Liam managed to sit up, looking a little better. He held the bowl himself, slowly bringing it to his lips. A bit of color finally returned to his pale face. Seeing me watch him, he grew nervous. "My lady, what is it? It shouldn't be like this," I thought. He shouldn't have to live such a cautious, timid life. When I was 12, I killed for the first time. It was a palace maid who tried to push me into a well. In a panic, I strangled her. In that moment, I was on the verge of collapse, not knowing why I was born, not understanding the purpose of it all. To this day, I can't remember how I managed to run out of the palace. My memory begins to clear from the moment I met Liam. A young boy my age, holding a fish, stared at me with wide eyes. "Whose family are you from?" I was silent. He roasted the fish for me. I took one bite and threw it up. Without a word, he went and cooked the last bit of rice his family had. His parents were long dead, and it was hard enough for him to feed himself, but he didn't drive me away. He took me with him wherever he went, up the mountains and down the rivers, as if he was afraid I would get lost. "You are a mute. You'll be bullied if you are alone," he said. But I wasn't a mute. I just didn't want to talk. He wasn't very talkative either. We were always silent together, like two little mutes. I had suspected him of having ulterior motives. After all, I had seen all sorts of filth in the palace. If he dared to try anything, I would kill him. But he never even touched my finger one time. "Watching me eat," he said with a smile. "I've always wanted a little sister." I said, "Who wants to be your sister?" I don't know why I suddenly blurted that out. He was startled. "You can talk." I flew into a strange temper because I didn't want to be his sister. Though at the time, I didn't understand what I was thinking. I only knew that I wanted him. The thought was so resolute it surprised even me. Being with him made me feel at ease. I wanted him to be with me for the rest of my life. A few days later, I was found by the palace guards and taken back. I accepted my fate, because I wanted the power that came with that fate. When my wings were fully grown, when it was no longer dangerous for him to be by my side, I would have him. But later, I couldn't find him. A child with no parents, no relatives, had vanished like a drop of water into the earth. My imperial brother said he was probably dead. It is easy for someone to die. We had seen it happen many times. The heart he had warmed turned cold again. I despised everyone equally, living every day in weariness. A month ago, I could have escaped that wolf, but I didn't. As I closed my eyes, ready to accept my fate, he rushed over to protect me. I recognized him in an instant. It was him. There was no mistake. Unfortunately, he had forgotten me, and I didn't want to bring up the past, especially since I hadn't left a good impression on him back then. All these years of struggling to survive, he had sold himself as a servant to another household, worn down into this cautious, timid state. But I had found him at last. For the first time in my life, I was grateful for my fate. I would not let anyone destroy it. Clara told me that Damon had arranged for the young lady to stay in the West Wing guest room and had provocatively spent a lot of money on things for her. Who cared? It wasn't my money. Perhaps seeing no reaction from me, Damon endured it for a few days before coming to find me again. Furious. I was watching Liam drink his medicine. He subconsciously stood in front of me, looking at the tall and imposing Damon without a word. He had been a servant in another household where people, seeing his good looks and gentle temper, would deliberately bully him. To protect himself, he had long developed a habit of not fighting back when hit or insulted. Yet at this moment, he instinctively stood in front of me, even though compared to Damon, he was nothing. I see this gentleman Liam has recovered. What is the meaning of this? Why haven't you let him leave? Damon demanded. I am the one shamelessly staying here. It has nothing to do with my lady. Please, General, calm your anger, Liam said in a low voice. You are quite self-aware. You are shamelessly staying here for the wealth and glory, aren't you? Take a look at yourself. Do you think you are worthy of it? Damon sneered, his eyes full of contempt. Liam's face paled. He opened his mouth but only said, Please, General, calm your anger, stop acting. Damon was infuriated. Who are you putting on this pitiful act for? I let out a cold laugh, took the jade pendant from my waist, and hung it on Liam's belt. Damon was about to faint with rage. He shouted, That was a gift from His Majesty! My imperial brother said that to see this jade pendant is to see him. To disrespect the wearer of this pendant is to disrespect my imperial brother, Damon. You'd better be careful. Liam's eyes were filled with panic. He wanted to give the pendant back to me but didn't dare touch the precious object. Frozen in place. Damon paced back and forth, not daring to touch Liam or me, so he smashed a teapot in his anger. What will people say? You are a married woman alone with him. Tell me, what will people say? Do you have any regard for your reputation? Liam's face was deathly pale. His fingers curled, and he kept his head down, not daring to look at him. I had never been so annoyed with Damon. I really wanted to stab him to death, just like I had stabbed the consort who tried to poison my brother and me. I wanted to grip a knife and stab all the bastards who hurt me and those around me. General Damon, are you suggesting you want a divorce? I looked at him calmly. Damon immediately stammered, saying that wasn't what he meant. Of course, that wasn't what he meant. If we divorced, his ill-gotten military merits would be questioned, and his career would be over. His family, his honor, his future, his everything. He wanted it all. That is the kind of person he was. A bastard. A murderous intent rose in my heart, but I didn't want it to show on my face. General Damon, you told me long ago that you only married me because you couldn't defy the engagement. You don't like me, and you don't expect to in the future. In that case, we should just stay out of each other's way. With that, I sat down next to Liam, pulled him into my arms, and gently patted his shoulder. Don't be afraid, gentleman Liam. He is always like this. Crude, dissolute, ignorant of propriety, unable to see the situation clearly, yet obsessed with face and arrogant. I will teach him a good lesson. Damon. You! Liam lifted his head, looked at Damon, and as if mustering great courage, said in a trembling voice, Why did you have to say those things to my lady? Damon didn't dare lose his temper with me, but he dared to take it out on Liam. What did I say? The engagement was not her decision. You are her husband. It is one thing not to care for her. But why did you have to say those things and hurt her heart? Liam's status was low. He had never even fought back when other servants bullied him. Yet today he was willing to say this to Damon for my sake. Although I didn't need his protection, I felt my heart soften. No wonder the late emperor doted on that concubine with a humble background and poor health. She must have been like this with him. Late emperor, I thought you were a fool, but now I see you understood everything. I took Liam's arm and turned to look at him. I never care about what others say. Don't take it to heart. Liam kept his head down, not looking at me. His handsome, elegant nose cast a slight shadow on his beautiful face. He said softly. Seeing us like this, Damon was about to faint with rage. You adulterous pair, he cursed. I walked up to him, raised my hand, and slapped him hard across the face. He was stunned, looking at me, but didn't dare to move. At 12, I dared to strangle a palace maid who tried to push me into a well with my bare hands. Whoever wants to kill me, I kill them. Over the years, I've lost count of the lives I've taken. Damon was just a pampered young master who didn't even dare to go onto the battlefield. Compared to me, he was the delicate flower. He saw the knife, like killing intent in my eyes, and for a moment didn't dare to speak. I said coldly, "Be careful, before we divorce. If you get Lily pregnant and cause unnecessary trouble, I will hang both of you from the rafters." What are you talking about? Stop spouting nonsense, Damon pointed at me, his finger trembling. Weren't you in the same carriage with her on the way back? Couldn't you have been a little quieter, a little more discreet? You brainless thing. Do you think you are me, that you can do whatever you want? Damon's expression was priceless. He guiltily looked away. He stared at the ground and after a long moment said, "You are my legal wife." I raised my hand and slapped him several more times. He held his face, looking at me, not knowing what he had said wrong. Get out. Damon fled. I walked over to Liam and sat down, feeling a little regretful. I shouldn't have shown him that side of me. Damon was furious with my attitude towards him. He no longer dared to try to drive Liam away, nor did he dare say anything in my presence. He just showered Lily with affection, spending money on all sorts of gifts for her. Unfortunately, the total cost of it all was less than a single one of Liam's restorative pills. With my meticulous care, Liam's health improved day by day, and he was finally able to get out of bed and walk around. Would you like to go for a walk? I asked him. Liam nodded. His eyes filled with unconcealed happiness. He probably hadn't had many chances to go out and have fun before. A fan seller had set up a stall ahead. Liam's gaze lingered on one of the fans for a few extra moments. I paid for it and handed it to him. He took it, overwhelmed. Thank you, my lady. He held the fan, looking at it with great care. In that moment, I pitied him for never having been treated well. Yet, I was also glad that no one had treated him well. All his cherished memories were connected to me, just as all my warm memories were connected to him. We walked into our usual clothing store, only to run into Damon and Lily, who were also there to shop. Damon looked at us and sneered, his expression quite a spectacle. Lily also looked timid and delicate, her gaze darting between Liam and me. It was amusing. Liam, who was so mild, mannered with me, always subconsciously stood in front of me in the presence of others. He blocked their gazes, and I smiled from behind him. I said, "We're out to relax. Go take a look. If you like anything, just have them wrap it up." Damon couldn't help but speak, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Gentleman Liam, are you enjoying being a kept man?" I stepped in front of Liam, brushed a strand of black hair from his shoulder, and said in a cool voice, "Relying on a woman to climb the ranks, gain military honors, and act arrogantly outside. That is what being a kept man is. To be given a chance but repeatedly provoke, that is taking advantage." "General Damon!" Seeing me, he exclaimed, "My lady, you are here. Why didn't you have someone call for me? The clothes you ordered are all ready. I was just about to have them sent to you." The owner had someone bring out several sets of men's clothing. They were made of the finest materials, exquisite silk and brocade, with fine workmanship, far more valuable than the ready-made clothes in the store. Seeing these men's clothes, Damon's face turned green with envy. Unfortunately, he couldn't afford to spend that much to win some face for Lily. I told Liam to go to the back and try on the clothes. He soon came out looking brand new, elegant and graceful, like a celestial being descended to earth. He was so handsome that all the women passing by couldn't help but steal glances at him. Damon gritted his teeth and said in a low, "Born a peasant, even in dragon robes, he wouldn't look like a prince." I adjusted Liam's collar, my voice slow and deliberate. "Whether one's status is noble or not, isn't that just a matter of a single word from me?" With that, I ignored Damon and looked Liam up and down. I said, "You look handsome." If it were just the two of us, he would surely have demurred, saying he didn't look good, and telling me not to waste money on him. But in front of others, he just smiled. The clothes my lady chooses are, of course, handsome. The young lady, Lily, seeing this, couldn't help but say, "General, let's go. We won't buy anything here." She glared at Liam, as if feeling wronged on behalf of her general. It was normal for a man to have 3 wives and 4 concubines, but a woman who dared to have a second thought deserved to die. But that was in other households. I raised my hand and tapped the counter. "Before you leave, apologize to Gentleman Liam, and I will let today's matter go." Damon looked as if he had been punched, staring at me in disbelief. "Meme, I should apologize to him. You want me to apologize to him?" I raised an eyebrow at him. "Yes, is there a problem?" Damon's voice trembled with anger. "I am your husband." The way he acted, I thought he was about to start listing all the laundry he'd done and children he'd borne for me, as if he had a point. Seeing his expression of utter grievance, I said, "Don't embarrass me here, apologize." Damon turned to leave. I said coldly, "You dare take one step." Of course, he didn't dare. Behind me, I had my imperial brother, and I myself was not someone to be trifled with. Damon disliked me because he knew I had once gouged out someone's eyes and cut out their tongue. He called me cruel and cold-blooded. He knew that if he truly angered me, his tongue and Lily's eyes would be in danger. After a moment, Damon turned his head, and through gritted teeth said, "I apologize, all right." I pointed to Liam. Apologize to him. Damon, who had always considered himself superior and looked down on everyone, how could he lower himself to apologize to Liam? He looked at me and said, "I am tired of fighting with you these days. How about we each take a step back? I will send Miss Lily to live elsewhere, and you send him back to where he came from." I was always amazed by his mind. Because of our engagement, he had been spoiled by his family since childhood. Those around him, because of his status and looks, had always been respectful, never pointing out his flaws. He probably still thought that the reason I was making him apologize was because I was angry that he was buying clothes for Lily. The reason he had been repeatedly provocative and hadn't been dealt with was because I liked him and couldn't bear to hurt him. What a fool. So foolish it was refreshing. I was willing to maintain the status quo only because Liam was thin-skinned, and I didn't want to push him too hard. "Damon, do you really think you are nobler than Gentleman Liam?" Damon gritted his teeth. "Am I not? Who am I? And who is he? How can he be compared to me?" "Fine." Then I had the clothes sent to my residence and left with Liam. Liam said in a low voice, "My lady, you don't need to get angry over such things. I am used to being scolded. I won't take it to heart." I turned to look at him. "But I just want to protect you. What do you suggest I do?" Liam bit his lip, took a deep breath, and said, I don't know." "Then are you happy?" He nodded obediently. "Happy. No one has ever stood up for me like this." "Then do you think I am good?" Liam nodded more forcefully. "Of course you are. When you were a servant, weren't the young ladies of the household nice to you?" Liam shook his head. "Of course. How could a well-bred young lady be nice to a servant?" I smiled and said no more. That night, I went to the palace to see my imperial brother. Subsequently, the brilliant young General Damon was placed under house arrest for repeated infractions in the army that nearly jeopardized a military campaign. After the rain, the sky cleared. I held a book and read it aloud to Liam. He was like a young child just beginning his studies, watching me obediently, not missing a single word. Why did that scholar have such a skill that with a single word, the monk was thrown against the wall? He asked curiously. "It is just a story. Perhaps the scholar was the Monkey King in disguise." Liam nodded. "My lady knows so much." I laughed. "Just because I can read some unofficial histories and miscellaneous notes, you think I know a lot?" "Of course. My lady is literate and knows everything." I raised my hand and stroked his smooth hair. He didn't shy away, letting me do as I pleased. He shoved Liam aside and roared, "Get away from her!" Liam's wolf bite wound had been slow to heal and had only just closed up. His body was still weak. Pushed so violently, he nearly fell to the ground. He clutched his wound, his face pale, his brow furrowed, and his lips pressed tightly together. Without thinking, I slapped Damon hard twice. "Bastard," I cursed. "Who told you to touch him?" Damon looked at me in disbelief. "You hit me for him." I looked at him coldly and slapped him again. A royal princess is not just skilled in reading and embroidery. At 16, I could draw a bow that men my age struggled with. My strength was not ordinary. Damon's face swelled up quickly. He closed his eyes tightly, as if defeated. He said, "I've sent Miss Lily away." "What does that have to do with me?" I said, annoyed. "Aren't you doing all this because I brought her back? I've sent her away. Are you still going to make things difficult for me?" I helped Liam sit up, lifted his shirt, and checked his wound. Fortunately, it hadn't reopened. I took my black cloak and covered Liam with it, wrapping him up. "Damon, I never cared that you brought that girl back, because I have never liked you. I reported you to my imperial brother because you insulted Gentleman Liam. If you don't sincerely apologize to him, the next step will be more than just house arrest." He hadn't been clean, so he couldn't blame me for holding it against him, full well how he had behaved in the army. Damon finally seemed to realize I was serious. He looked at me in disbelief, recalling past events, and found no evidence that I loved him. He thought my coldness towards him was because I was naturally that way, that I didn't know how to be good to people. But he had seen it. I was very good to people. Personal care, lavish spending, constant protection. Yes, people are all the same. They are good to those they like. Anyone can do that. Unfortunately, he was not the one receiving that kindness, and he had never been good to me. Realizing this, he became angry and embarrassed. His expression shifted several times, but in the end, for the sake of face, he managed to suppress it. "Are you determined to be like this?" Damon asked. I pulled Liam into my arms and looked at him with a half-smile. "If you were a little more sensible and didn't provoke Gentleman Liam, I wouldn't mind maintaining the status quo. But since you insist on being foolish, I have no choice. A divorce is certain, and an apology is also certain." Damon gritted his teeth. He looked at Liam as if he had suffered a great humiliation. After a long moment, he said in a trembling voice, "I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I apologize." Then, he looked at me with hatred. "Don't you regret this?" With that, he turned and left. I scoffed and patted Liam's shoulder. "How is it? Does it still hurt?" Liam looked at me, his voice a little hoarse. "My lady, why are you so good to me? What do you think?" "My lady is kind. Perhaps you are grateful for my help and are keeping me here to heal, giving me many precious gifts. But why protect me like this?" I held his wrist and looked at him without any pretense. "Do you really not know? Or are you pretending not to know?" Liam was flustered. "I thought my lady was just using me to provoke General Damon." I held his chin, forcing him to look at me. "When I was 12, I left the palace alone and met a young boy. He took great care of me because he said he wanted a little sister." Liam froze. He stared at my face, his eyes filled with shock, finally finding a familiar trace in my features. In an instant, he understood where my care and favoritism came from. But instead of the joy of reuniting with an old acquaintance, his face quickly paled. He lowered his head, his long, slender fingers curling. After a long moment, he said, "I didn't know it was you." I smiled. "If you had known it was me, you wouldn't have deliberately put on this obedient and pitiful act." His dark, glossy hair fell forward, his voice barely audible. "You knew I was pretending all along. Why didn't you expose me?" Of course, I knew he was pretending. As I said, I grew up in the palace and had long grown tired of such acts. But because it was him, I only felt pity. He had spent half his life struggling to survive, selling himself as a servant, enduring endless scorn and bullying, forced by his master to go to the wilderness to gather herbs for some sachet. He had saved a noble and seized an opportunity. To secure a future for himself, he clumsily feigned a pitiful appearance. But he didn't know that every time he looked at me with that feigned pity, his eyes were filled with unconcealable anxiety and pleading. His innocence, his little schemes, everything about him. I accepted and adored it all. Because he was mine, being near him made me feel at ease, and I wanted him to be with me forever. Thinking this, I lifted his face and said, "Now I've exposed you. What are you going to do?" All the color drained from Liam's face. After a long moment, he said, "My lady is kind. Please, spare my life." Sigh, after all that pretending, he is still a fool. Does he think I'd be angry just because he pretended to be an innocent little flower? I pressed my lips to his. He stared with wide eyes, not daring to move. I held him tightly, for the first time grateful for the power I possessed. At least I had the confidence to bite his lip and say, with no room for refusal, "From today on, you are mine. If you dare to run away again, I will dig up the earth to find you." I was in a rare good mood. I had Clara brew some orange tea and sat in the courtyard, basking in the sun. Clara came over with a grin and whispered, "I just took Gentleman Liam his meal. Why did he look so dazed? My lady, what did you do to him?" I smiled without a word and took a sip of tea. Just then, Lily appeared from nowhere and knelt before me. "Princess, please, let the general go. It is all my fault for causing this misunderstanding. Please don't be angry with him," she cried pitifully, her face streaked with tears. I continued to drink my tea as if I hadn't seen her. After crying for a while and failing to produce more tears, she looked at me with red eyes. I said slowly, "If you hadn't come, I would have forgotten about you. How many months has it been?" Lily was stunned. "What months? How many months along is it?" Lily's face turned white. She knelt on the ground, not daring to move. Damon rushed over and helped her up, looking like a pair of star-crossed lovers. "What did you do to Miss Lily?" He looked at me with hatred, as if he wanted to call me a venomous woman. I picked up the teapot, walked over to them, and slowly poured the tea over their heads. Lily screamed, but Clara had already called for servants to restrain them. "Damon, this Miss Lily is pregnant. She has already taken several doses of medicine to secure the pregnancy. Didn't you know?" Damon was stunned, looking at Lily in a panic. I said, "Miss Lily, you said I misunderstood. What did I misunderstand?" "The child in your belly. If it is not Damon's, then whose is it?" "Lily number." "It is not." I laughed, lifted her face and said, "Don't be afraid. I won't stop you from being together. I am divorcing Damon. From now on, he is all yours." Damon, who had been about to curse me just a moment ago, was stunned to hear I was serious. He looked at me in disbelief. "General Damon, you are finished," I said to him softly. "Do you understand what finished means?" Of course he understood. It meant I wouldn't let him off easy. I remembered every time he had bullied my Liam. "The child is not mine. It has nothing to do with me." Damon began to show his true colors, all his composure gone. Lily was stunned, tears streaming down her face. "General, if it is not yours, then whose is it?" Damon looked like he could kill her. He hated her for letting things get to this point, hated her for making him realize the reality that I didn't love him. He lost his mind, screaming and shouting. One moment saying he brought Lily back to provoke me, the next saying he loved me, and then saying he had never liked me. Sigh. What a disgusting man. My Liam was so much better. A divorce decree was issued, and the servants threw out everything belonging to Damon and Lily. Damon refused to accept it, shouting and screaming. I watched him go mad quietly. When he realized he was only embarrassing himself, he was led away by his father's servants, looking utterly dejected. As for Miss Lily, she naturally went with him. I just didn't know if his family would accept her. Amidst the commotion outside, Liam came out to see what was happening, just in time to see Damon being dragged away, looking pathetic. Seeing him, Damon's madness flared up again, but he couldn't break free from the servants. That day, after I had pressed him onto the bed and kissed him a few times, Liam had been unable to look me in the eye. He was too thin, skinned, and I was too thick, skinned, We were quite a good match. He asked hesitantly. What happened to General Damon? I said. I divorced him. He is having a meltdown. Liam. Oh. I had discovered long ago that when he wasn't pretending to be an innocent little flower, he was just quiet and reserved. Just like when he was a child. He followed me wherever I went, quietly by my side. I found him more and more endearing. When Damon's figure was completely out of sight, Liam turned back, looked at me anxiously, and asked in a small voice, Are you really not angry with me? I beckoned to him, and he came closer. Liam, you are adorable when you pretend to be innocent. I can't get enough of it. How could I be angry? Liam, sigh, so dense. I'd almost rather he pretended to be a little white flower for me again. When he was like this, I always had the urge to hold him in my arms, which made me seem quite forward. I stroked his hair and asked, Are you very afraid of me? He shook his head without a moment's hesitation. I lifted my chin. Then you must like me. He feigned composure. His face bright red, and shook his head stiffly. Number right. Our statuses are worlds apart. I suppose you wouldn't dare to like me. Anyway, I am divorced now, so I can have a few men in my household. In the future, you'd better not get jealous or act pitiful and innocent again. Do you hear me? He panicked, subconsciously grabbing my wrist and shaking his head. No, you can't. I was about to tease him some more, but in the end, I couldn't bear to. I looked at him with a smile and said, Then we'll see how you behave. His behavior. What could he do? He couldn't pretend to be an innocent little flower in front of me anymore, so he could only follow me around silently, listening to me read, practicing calligraphy with me, sitting with me in the courtyard watching the leaves fall, and then picking out the most beautiful one to make a bookmark for me. The first 3 characters he learned to write were my name, Aurelia Shen. Mother wanted me to be untainted, but it is a pity I've waded through blood. A pity for the name, but it doesn't matter. What is done is done. I can only be glad that I still have things I want and can hold on to them tightly. A few months later, Liam's calligraphy had improved greatly. He found the paper with my name on it, and on the back, he wrote it again and again, until he was satisfied. Then he handed it to me. I nodded. All right. I know you like me. You don't have to write it so many times. He stiffly took the paper back and continued writing. I laughed. When did you start to like me? He accidentally poked a hole in the paper. After a long moment, he said in a low voice, When I realized that when you protected me, you seemed to really want to protect me, not just to provoke General Damon. I laughed even harder. You are a bit slow on the uptake, aren't you? Liam, shall we go shopping? I poked his forehead with a smile. Liam obediently said, All right. Halfway through our shopping trip, we ran into 2 old acquaintances, Damon and Lily. Their attire was a far cry from before. It made sense. Damon had committed a major offense in the army, and although he wasn't court-martialed, he was fined a large sum of money. He had no savings, so he had to take money from his family. I heard his parents scolded him mercilessly. Miss Lily also received her share of scolding. After the divorce, his career was over, and his family began to decline. He had brothers, and to distance themselves from him, his father decisively removed him from the family registry, disowning him. Overnight, he went from a high and mighty general to a commoner, cast out of his family, and looked down upon by others. He must deeply regret his actions. I had considered killing him, but compared to death, this life was probably more painful for him. He couldn't live on the streets, so he had to borrow money from friends everywhere to rent a small house to live in with the pregnant Lily. We were here to buy things. He was here to sell things. Seeing me, Damon snorted with a dark expression. Liam, do you smell that? What is that smell? I deliberately raised my voice. Liam was confused. What smell? So sour, so foul. I sneered. Damon gritted his teeth but didn't dare to say another word. Lily's jealous gaze was even less concealed. I had the shop owner bring out a dozen high-quality jade pendants, and patiently had Liam try them on one by one. Shopkeeper, wrap them all up and send them to my residence. Liam looked at the nearly fainting Damon and gently tugged my sleeve. He said, "General Damon doesn't look well. Is he sick? Should we call a doctor for him?" Damon was so angry he almost passed out. I laughed out loud, took Liam's hand, and walked out. The sun was warm outside. I looked up and couldn't help but squeeze his hand a little tighter. What warm sunshine. What a beautiful sky.